Hi everyone, welcome back to 78 Reflections. My name is Patty Elaine, and I'm so glad you're here. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go into the third decan for Taurus. And this, when you look up the time frames, you will see some variations, but typically it goes somewhere from May 11th to May 20th. There's 3 decans in each of the Zodiac signs, and they all go about 10 days. And I have been exploring a decan stroll this year, which is just a really fun way of learning a little more about tarot by integrating some knowledge of astrology. But the decans are new to me. Astrology is definitely new to me. I would feel like I would have the most knowledge in tarot. But even that, I'm not an expert. So if you're interested in this topic, I hope you'll just listen along, offer your perspective if you want. If you're not sure about decan walk or decan stroll, what it means, I will link my introduction video in the description box. But I'm assuming if you're here, you probably know what it is and you're interested. So what I have been doing for my decan stroll is about every 10 or so days, I do a tarot spread that is inspired by this Temperance card, and I'm calling it the Alchemy spread. And you can see in the Temperance card, we have this angel holding 2 cups. And for my spread, we have a card representing each of these cups, one for the astrological sign and one for the planetary influence. And then in the middle, we have the decan card, which is the alchemy between the two. So let's explore that together for the third decan in Taurus. So spoiler alert, the current zodiac is Taurus. And this past week, I have been working a lot with Corinne Kenner's book, Tarot and Astrology. 10 out of 10 recommend. If you don't already know about it, I do really recommend this book. And it has been really helpful for me in putting the pieces of the puzzle together, especially this week, which I have found to be particularly challenging. And it's because of the planetary influence that we'll get into shortly. But I want to start by reading a little bit to you from Corinne's book on Taurus, which is represented by the major arcana card, the Hierophant. Taurus plays for keep, especially when it comes to matters of spiritual value. That's what makes the sign such a perfect match for the Hierophant, the card of time-honored values. Taurus, the sign of stability and convention, with the Hierophant, a traditionalist who values faithfulness and tradition. Both Taurus and the Hierophant are committed to structure and propriety, along with the creature comforts and objects of beauty that represent spiritual treasures. So I don't necessarily agree with this definition of the Hierophant. If you watch my first video on the first decan for Taurus, you'll hear all about that, and I won't get into that today. But I think it's interesting how they tie it together. And she also in this book talks about how the word Hierophant shares the same origin as the word hierarchy, and that talking about various levels of authority, and with the Hierophant being the final authority. So that's an interesting perspective. She goes on to talk about, Taurus having the symbol of the bull, and like the bulls in a meadow, Taurus and the Hierophant are committed to creature comforts as well as stability of long-standing ritual and practice. Both can be bullheaded, stubborn, immovable, and almost impossible to placate. Both can be bullish when it comes to the practice of their beliefs. Both can also be a rock of solidarity and a comfort in difficult times. They are determined and loyal, dedicated and enduring, and in a sense, the Hierophant is the spiritual beast of burden. So there's a lot more in this book, but I thought that offered an interesting perspective of Taurus that I hadn't explored in the other two Decan spreads that I did. So we have on the right, we have this card, we have this cup, which is representing Taurus and the Hierophant. And the planetary influence is Saturn. And it is, the key word for Saturn is structure, and it is the World card. So I want to talk about Saturn a little bit from Corinne's book, and then also go a little deeper on the World card. Because I think that when I was watching Marlena Teresa's videos about the Decan walk that she did in 2023, she talked about how the astrology really enhanced her knowledge of the tarot. And I will say that I felt that strongly this week in my understanding of the World card, which the World card is interesting. We'll talk about it more, but it's a card I have a bit of a difficult relationship with because I tend to be skeptical of it. It's like too good to be true. But we'll talk about that. And this part of Corinne Kenner's book is about Saturn and the world. While the world might seem limitless, both Saturn and the physical universe operate according to the scientific law and principle of reason. Both have clearly defined parameters. Saturn, a ringed planet of structure, boundaries, limitations, and restrictions, finds perfect peace in the well-ordered physical planet of Earth. The traditional version of the World card features a dancer spinning endlessly in her own world. A wreath, a symbol of eternal life, forms a protective enclosure that frames her every movement. It is a symbol of simple physics. We are made of energy, and energy is never created nor destroyed. It is transformed. While the World card usually suggests a universe of possibilities, Saturn's connection serves as a reminder that reasonable people also recognize the limits and make wise choices to make the time and space they're allotted. Most people, of course, rebel at boundaries. They like to feel free and unencumbered. Saturn brings us down to earth and teaches us the practical realities of earthly existence. Even though Saturn's rings imply a certain number of limitations and restrictions, they also delineate boundaries that help us define our position and relate to other people without losing our individuality. Saturn is a rule maker. Make sure we all share a common language of values, morals, and expectations, so we're all on the same page. Saturn can also be a control freak. It likes to control the environment and the outcome. Of course, part of the outcome is predetermined. Saturn is connected to death, and the ring planet of limitations and restrictions set definite boundaries for our earthly existence. When our name is written in the book of life, we all know the story will eventually end. So I think that this is really interesting, and I think forms a picture of the World card that I can make a little more peace with. So I want to explore the World card a little bit more today, and I have some more cards to share with you. So this one is from the Zodiac Tarot, which is quite beautiful. And the Zodiac Tarot also connects the world to Saturn. The journey that started with the Fool ends here. The World, card number 21, is the last in the major arcana and forms a new cycle. The World is a card that completes a journey, and Saturn is the planet that severs, set boundaries, and separates. Around the central figure of the card, we usually find a wreath, something that represents a whole, the closing of a circle, the achievement of a goal. From the World card, we can only start again. It's important not to close ourselves off too much, to not stand still in our comfort zone too long, but to be ready to leave our world to explore another one. Saturn concludes the cycle, severs what's unnecessary, and allows us to embark on a new journey. So in the Tarot of the Spirit deck, it is the Universe card, number 21, and the interpretation is quite similar to what we've come to expect from, I think, the Rider-Waite-Smith. You know, completion, celebration, joyfulness. And there's the World card in the Star Tarot. And I just want to read a little bit from that guidebook. So in the Star Tarot guidebook, it describes the World card as the universe, the gateway to wisdom, and the integration of self. With the World or Universe card, you are dancing the dance of freedom and liberation, knowing and trusting who you are. The dark and light with you is fully integrated. And that's the interesting part from this guidebook that I really liked. And Lisa also talks about it in her book, Lisa Pepez, Unlocking the Tarot. She also talks about the World card as integration, which I quite like that interpretation. And what she says is that not only have you reached the end of the journey, but you've integrated the lessons along the way. If you hadn't, you wouldn't be finished yet. Integration is a wonderful word for remembering every step that led you to this place. And so that's really focusing on the, like the wholeness of the journey. So here we are. We have the Hierophant, the Taurus. We have over here the World in Saturn. And the Alchemy in the middle is the Decan from the current Taurus 3, which is the Seven of Pentacles. The Seven of Pentacles. So 7, from a numerology perspective, I think of discernment. And Pentacles is in the physical realm. So things you can see, feel, touch. It usually has to do with material things of some sort, but it could also be your time and your energy. And so for me, this card, you see him leaning on his hoe, I think. And I always think of this card as being the middle meadow, which is a time when you've gone through a lot of work and you're pretty tired, but you look ahead of you and you still see a mountain to climb. And so it can be a time of reassessment. And for me, that's always what I think about when I see the Seven of Pentacles. I always think it's time for a pause and just, take a beat and consider what you need to do to get to the finish line. Because you're at 7. So you need to get to the finish line. What is going to be the best way forward and taking that pause. Going back to Corinne Kenner's book on tarot and astrology, she also has references to the minor arcana and the decans. And so I found her book really helpful because when you read 36 Secrets with Susan T. Chang, she talks about the Seven of Pentacles being the Lord of failure. And I found that very difficult to reconcile based on the World and the Hierophant, Taurus and Saturn. But I think the way that Corinne explains it really helps me make sense of it. So she says Saturn, the ring planet of limitations and restrictions, imposes structure and discipline on everything it touches. When Saturn lands in Taurus, a sign of growth and fertility, it enforces a waiting period before harvest and reward. When we first met Saturn in the World card, crowned with the laurel wreath of victory, completion and success seemed like a sure thing. Saturn's presence in the Seven of Pentacles, however, reminds us that the real victory demands a long-term investment of physical endurance and spiritual strength. And so when you think about that, that really is the world and the Hierophant. You know, to get to the world card, to get to the completion, the end of the journey, it requires a lot of determination and perseverance. And when you think about the Hierophant, that's spiritual strength. So in this case, Saturn serves as a patient taskmaster, teaching the value of determination and perseverance. The Golden Dawn designers of this card called Saturn in Taurus the Lord of Success Unfulfilled. So that's a bit different than the Lord of Failure. And she goes on to say, because he delays gratification and reward until they have been earned. Like Kronos, the god of time, Saturn forces us to learn self-discipline, to manage our time wisely, and allow nature and life to run its natural course. Saturn reminds us that the world is bigger than any one individual and that others will eventually impose their will on us if we can't control ourselves. Like all minor arcana cards of Taurus, the Seven of Pentacles is connected to the Hierophant, and that's because of Taurus, but also to the Empress because Venus is the ruler of the Hierophant. And so that's why the Empress comes into play as well. And so she goes on to talk about how, you know, the Empress card, if you don't know, usually depicts someone who is pregnant. And so she talks about the Empress who is perpetually pregnant can tell you that the last few months of pregnancy seem to stretch on far beyond their actual measure. She can also tell you that anticipation makes the final reward sweeter. In a tarot reading, the Seven of Pentacles often symbolizes patience and reward, obstacles and delays, and worries about expected outcomes. So for this third decan of Taurus, which falls between May 11th and May 20th, for me, I want to be really mindful of the important pause and the patience and the determination that it requires to complete goals and to achieve the things that we want to achieve. When I think about the journey of the decans, in the first decan of Taurus, we had the Five of Pentacles, which is about scarcity. And it's about looking up from your feet to see what else is possible. And then in the last decan, we had the Six of Pentacles, which is giving and receiving. And now we're waiting. And now we're in the middle. And so it's been really interesting to me to explore these three decans of Taurus. This one has definitely been the most challenging for me. I am going to link Marlena's video from 2023. It's fantastic. She talks a lot about the aspect of time when it comes to this reading, which I thought was fascinating as well. So thank you for being here today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like it if you do. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me. And I hope to see you in the next one. Until then.